So when you hear the phrase breaking the silence, what does it make you think and feel?
It makes me think primarily about the importance of talking about these things. I think for men in particular, it still seems to be the case. I know that the narrative is that we're meant to be talking more, and men are opening up a little bit more, but that tends to not be my experience still quite so much in terms of the amount of people that I see. But I think it's talking about mental health and opening up about these things, but also learning skills and tools that you can use yourself that can help you to prevent yourself getting into a situation where you might be in crisis or you might need more support.
Why do you think then on that, why do you think that men still aren't opening up as much as they, in inverted commas, should be or would
It's
be
a
or
good
could be?
question, Kelly. I think there's still that stigma around men
Mhm.
talking about mental health, in particular, men opening up, it being seen as a weakness and not a masculine thing to do. I know this has been spoken about a lot, and I know that times are meant to be changing, but that's still not my experience, and it's not happening as quickly as I would like. I mean, to give you an example, I ran a course for a company a couple of 2 years ago, and it was a men's mental health course. The email went out to hundreds of employees, a number of which had been struggling to some degree, that had been marked by their supervisors, and I had four men attend this course.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean that says enough, doesn't it?
Yes, unfortunately so.
So why do you think then also there's the stigma in sports and football in that sort of industry?
I think even more so. I think there's this archetype of the masculine man in particular that doesn't talk about his emotions, doesn't open up about how they're feeling, and it being perceived as a weakness. I think all those same things, but I think in sport and particularly football, perhaps that's exacerbated. I think times are changing, but I still think that's happening slower than we would like.
No, I agree. I agree. And then because you mentioned obviously before about tools and things like that, what specific tools would you give to people? I mean, I know that's a very broad
Well,
question.
well, well, it is, Elliot, but I think also as well, I think there's a lot of emphasis on mental health being in the mind,
Mhm.
and tools and techniques that you learn to challenge thoughts and to be more positive and those kind of things. And although that can be very helpful, my philosophy's always been start with the body first of all. So if you can calm the body, if you can regulate the nervous system, then the mind tends to follow. And I think for men especially, there's some evidence that men are able to be more connected to their body and are able to explain sensations in their body and notice sensations in their body perhaps more easily than women are in terms of the way that their brains are wired. So men don't always have the capacity and the vocabulary and the language to talk about how they're feeling. Whereas they're able to tune into their bodies a little bit more and notice whereabouts in their body they're feeling tense or they're feeling uncomfortable. So techniques like breathing, various breathing exercises, activities that activate the vagus nerve directly. So you're bypassing the thinking brain and you're going directly to calming the nervous system. So this is where things like cold water immersion comes in, breathing, touch of various kinds. There's alternative therapies such as tapping certain body parts as well. You might have heard of that. And there's more increasing empirical support for a lot of these interventions now. So my philosophy has always been start with the body first of all, what we call a bottom, sorry, a bottom up approach, bottom up, starting with the body, rather than this mental health being something in the mind, and we need to think ourselves out of it or change the way we think. And sometimes that can be difficult when there's so much dysregulation going on in the body.
That makes a lot of sense because how can you look at calming a very chaotic mind if the entire existence that it's sitting in isn't in a good stable place either?
Exactly. I often say to people, it's like trying to convince yourself of one thing, meanwhile there's a storm going on in your body sometimes, and that's quite difficult. And if there's a battle between the nervous system and the thinking brain, the nervous system is always going to win because the nervous system puts you into survival mode, and there's a lot of excess energy, particularly with anxiety, which is the main area that I specialize in, all forms of anxiety. Anxiety is excess energy in the nervous system. So you've got to find a way to either interrupt that energy or expend that energy so that you bring yourself back into balance and back into regulation again. You can't really think yourself successfully out of anxiety. Once the body is calm, then you can do the cognitive stuff and the affirmations and the balanced thinking and all those things that are very helpful, but not until the body's calm first.
Well, it's like one of those things where if you are giving yourself an affirmation, but you have heightened anxiety in that moment, no matter how many positive things you say to yourself, you just do not feel them or believe them. And that you're right, the nervous system interrupts and it's like, no, this is all lies.
Exactly, exactly. Then that creates another layer of tension and anxiety because you're not feeling authentic, you're not
Yeah.
feeling like you're being honest and authentic about how you're feeling, and then that
Hmm.
creates another layer of anxiety and pressure as well.
And then we all classically spiral, which
Eh,
is always
eh,
good fun.
exactly that, exactly that. So I think a lot of it is about managing the energy in the nervous system primarily. So if you can learn to do that, learn to work on the body directly, and there are various ways you can do that. Breathing, something called progressive muscular relaxation, which is tensing and then relaxing certain body parts, which releases tension and tunes you into your body more. And as I said, any touch as well. Sometimes there's things like something called havening, which again is an alternative therapy, but there's a lot more support now for some of these alternative therapies. Havening is gently sort of stroking yourself, tapping certain points, anything that brings you back into your body, and you start to learn that the body can be a source of comfort. Whereas a lot of times when you're struggling with mental health, particularly anxiety, you
Mhm.
learn that you become quite disconnected from your body because you learn
Mhm.
that the uncomfortable feelings are in the body, so you either end up being disconnected from your body or stuck in your head where the negative thoughts are, which is not helpful either.
Mm. I am enjoying learning all of this.
Yeah.
So what, so like you said, you specialize a lot in anxiety. What kind of concepts or things would you, if someone came to you, and I know again, a very broad question, but if someone did come to you with regards to this sort of thing and specializing in anxiety, what kind of concept would you say to them?
I think primarily to recognize that whatever thoughts are going on in your
Mhm.
head, thoughts are not facts. Let the mind do whatever the mind is doing, and seeing if you can direct your attention away from your mind entirely and to your body instead.
Mhm.
So the when with anxiety in particular, your brain thinks it's protecting you. It's providing you with energy because it thinks you're in danger. It could be life-threatening, so it's providing you with energy. So your brain is doing what it thinks it can because it thinks you're in real danger. It thinks there's a tangible threat to your life. So it's providing you with energy. Then the thoughts start spiraling. So it's very difficult, as you probably know, to get yourself to stop thinking about anything. Yeah. So particularly when it's negative thoughts. So trying to stop negative thoughts is very difficult, if not impossible to do. But what you can do is you can have a certain sentence that you say to yourself, that you repeat that sentence, and whilst at the same time you are then beginning to do the breathing in a smooth and regulated way. And the sentence that I normally give people is, this is my brain protecting me. Thank you, brain, for protecting me.
Mm.
Okay. Whatever thoughts come up, just keep repeating that same sentence whilst at the same time doing the breathing, noticing where in your body is becoming tense, and then relax your body. It won't stay relaxed for very long. It will tense up again. So you just keep going through this cycle of just letting go, relaxing the body, doing the regulated breathing, and reminding yourself that your brain hasn't turned against you in the way it feels. It just thinks you're in danger. So it's providing you with energy. So you keep reminding yourself of that. You make sense of what's happening by saying, this is my brain protecting me. Thank you, brain, for protecting me, which again flips it a little bit, shifts your focus. You recognize, rather than this horrible thing that I want to eliminate at all costs, the brain is just being over enthusiastic, over protective. Thank your brain for doing that. Meanwhile, see if you can begin to calm that storm.
Well, because that's exactly it. We want to eliminate the thoughts and we want to get rid of them. And before we can, we then spiral into the more, in inverted commas, negative emotions. We'll start to feel guilty. That obviously makes the anxiety more. We'll start to feel sad, more anxiety. So, yes, all these different things, rather than just saying to ourselves, like you said, well, thanking our brain because our brain's actually just protecting us.
Exactly, exactly. So that would be what I would normally do. I'm quite big in my clinic with providing strategies and
Mm.
techniques and processes. I think talk therapy is very important to be able to talk and open up about how you feel is very important. To have that validated in a non-judgmental way by somebody is incredibly important. But my experience is that that on its own is not enough to create those changes
Mhm.
and to really prevent yourself from having problems with your mental health. From my perspective, you need tools and strategies as well. So I'm quite big on teaching tools and strategies. Some are somatic, so bodily ones, breathing, relaxing the body. Some are habits like cold showering, exercising, these kind of things that calm the nervous system. And then you have the cognitive strategies, which are things like gratitude lists, mental imagery, things that direct your attention, the attention of your mind in a more positive and productive and balanced way.
Is there any very specific ones, or at least one that you can share a little bit more about?
I think really from a mental imagery
Mhm.
perspective, you're just imagining yourself somewhere where you feel comfortable and safe. And that could be a desert island somewhere beautiful, or that could simply be a home in your bedroom where you feel comfortable. But the opposite of anxiety is safety. So
Mhm.
somewhere where you feel safe and comfortable, and bring in as many senses as you can. So even if you're not particularly visual, you might be able to feel the sensation of the softness of the bed beneath you. You might be able to hear the sound of the waves gently crashing on the shore in the background. So bring in the auditory senses, bring in the feelings, the kinesthetic senses. And a lot of athletes will be familiar with mental imagery. That's the beauty of this as well. I mean, I used to be involved in doing mental conditioning programs. I used to lecture in sports psychology at the university. And athletes have their physical conditioning program and they have a mental conditioning program that they follow now as well. So I think alongside that, if there can be additional tools and strategies that can help them from a preventative perspective to have issues with from having issues from their mental health further down the road. And I think it's really just putting aside as little as 5 minutes a day and just choosing a few exercises that you feel are the best fit for you. Now,
Mhm.
that might be some of the cognitive, the somatic ones, the breathing, the cold showering, splashing water on your face, or it might be gratitude lists, it might be mental imagery. What you do, I think, is less important. It's more about getting people in the habit of putting time aside to work on their mental health rather than waiting until they get into trouble and then come and see people like me.
Well, that's like you said, you only need 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes if that.
Exactly, exactly.
So, is there anything else that you'd like to share before we wrap up today?
Not really. I just think the importance of going to the body first,
Mhm.
practicing the breathing, relaxing your body, and exercise is very important. So many wonderful ways to exercise, so much variety. I think that's a really useful habit that you can do that has numerous mental and physical health benefits as well. So I think rather than trying to think yourself out of these situations, always go to the body first. When you feel a bit calmer, then you can start seeing if you can look at whatever situation in your life that's causing you to feel this way. You can start to look at it in a more balanced and rational way once you calm the body first.
Well, to be honest, we don't hear that a lot, I find. We don't hear it is, I mean, it's obvious when you say it about calming the body, but I don't feel like we're actually told it a lot.
No, no, I would agree on the whole.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
My pleasure. Take care.